Hello and welcome back. We're here today to talk about the fairly controversial topic of treeless saddles. If you're at all interested in my opinion on treeless saddles, sit back, make yourselves a cup of tea and hopefully, I know it's controversial, but enjoy. I think before we even start to think about treeless saddles, we need to think about saddles full stop, what we have saddles for. So why have a saddle at all? Well, the reason that we have saddles is to distribute our weight on the horse's back, to make sure the horse is comfortable, to reduce pressure points, and also to give us something to sit in so that we don't just plop off the side at the first spook. I mean, I know everyone doesn't plop off the side at the first spook, but myself included, some of us do. But that is why we have saddles on our horses, to distribute the weight, to reduce pressure points, to make us an easier weight for them to carry, and also to make our lives a little bit more easy and secure and comfortable. Because anybody that's ever ridden a really high withered thoroughbred bareback will tell you that front wedges are not comfortable. So when we think of it like that, when we think of what saddles are for, weight distribution, pressure point distribution, comfortability for the horse, making us as riders easier way for the horse to carry, and also making it comfortable for us. But when you think about it like that, that's when we need to think about, does the tree help with that or hinder with that? And in turn, does a treeless saddle also do those things? Now, I appreciate this is quite a controversial topic and I'm probably going to be bombarded with a load of people with a lot of hate after this because they don't agree with my opinions. But please remember, these are my opinions, and these are my opinions as a saddle fitter, a qualified saddle fitter. So bear that in mind when you're listening to what I say. How do saddles distribute our weight, pressure, and make us an easier weight to bear? Well, the majority of saddles have something like this in it. Now, a lot of people will look at this and think, well, that's quite an archaic thing to put inside a saddle and put on your horse's back. Metal, wood, hard, inflexible, and that's what they would think when they see this. And then they think of their horse and how their horse moves and moves really freely, and its back moves and it swings and it rotates, and they think, gosh, why are we putting something made out of metal and wood and fixed onto our beautiful swinging, rotating horse's back? But actually, the part of the horse's back that the saddle sits on, and this is a whole different video in itself, but the part of the back that the saddle sits on is the thoracic area. It's the area where all the ribs come from, and that is actually not got as much movement in it as you would think. Certainly you'll find a tree saddle doesn't actually affect it too much at all. So whilst this looks really archaic and really like heavy and hard and oh my god, my flowing horse's back, actually you'll be surprised how little movement there is through that part of the back. The majority of the movement comes from just in front of the saddle and just behind the saddle. The ribs are fairly, not fixed, but they're not as movie as you think they are. So when we look at this tree here, it's very important to have your saddle fitted to your horse with the correct tree in it, because this tree has to mirror the shape of your horse's back. So the angles here, this one here is quite flat this way. So this wouldn't suit a horse with a very angled back. This is designed for something with quite a flat back. You see quite flat through there. So the tree has to fit the shape of your horse, and when the tree does fit the shape of your horse, it sits on there, and you can see how this would distribute the weight. So although your bum may only take up a half of the saddle, your weight is distributed from the front of the saddle to the back of the saddle. The whole saddle is distributing your weight evenly. You're sitting in the middle, it's not collapsing, it's holding firm, and it's distributing your weight from front to back. It's also got these stirrup bars on, which are attached to the tree. So any pressure through your stirrups spreads across the tree, distributes evenly down the tree. So no matter what you do in your saddle, within reason, your weight is distributed well with the use of a tree inside a treed saddle. Stirrup bars, rider's weight, girth straps even. The girth straps come over the tree, they pull down, they distribute evenly across the tree. This here is a traditional wooden tree, and this is what the majority of the traditional saddles are built on. But nowadays there are lots of different types of tree. There are plastic trees, there are carbon fibre trees, but they all take a similar sort of shape and have a similar sort of function, and that function is, yes, you guessed it, weight distribution, pressure distribution, etc, etc. Now, I don't have a treeless saddle in here because I don't deal with treeless saddles, so instead I've got a substitute. It's a pillow. You might think, oh, that's a bit harsh, but a treeless saddle is essentially a pillow. Let's imagine we put a rider on this pillow. What's going to happen? Well, the rider's weight is going to dip here, and where's the pressure going to be? I think we know where the pressure is going to be. It's going to be where the rider's bottom sits. So there's going to be a pressure point here in the middle. And what about the stirrup bars? The stirrup bars are going to sit on essentially something like a pillow. Imagine your stirrup bars are on here. So what's going to happen to them when you put weight through your stirrup? Is it going to be evenly distributed across the tree? No, it's not. It's going to have a pressure point just underneath where the stirrup bars are. And what about your girth? Where your girth straps come up, they're attached to the saddle, you do your girth up. Is this going to distribute the pressure of your girth straps being done up? It's not. So, but you might think, well, treeless saddles aren't that floppy. And they're not. That's true. Not all of them are this floppy. Some are, I have to add. Some are very floppy. And some have a little bit of structure to them. And actually, the more expensive you tend to go up through the treeless saddles, the more structure they have to them to try and distribute the weight like a tree does. But then you're getting into the realms of, they're actually almost treed saddles. Some of them have got like almost like a leather tree. So in order to get that distribution of weight, pressure, all of that through your saddle, you need a fixed structure in the middle of it, which is where the trees come in. And now if your treeless saddle has a fixed structure in the middle of it, it might not officially have a tree, but that's what's going to be distributing the pressure. And therefore, is it really truly a treeless saddle? A lot of people are really tempted by the treeless saddles because they, for example, cost. You can get them very cheaply. They don't need to be fitted to the horse because they actually fit them to the rider. So you'll buy a saddle according to your bum size. And because of that, it means a lot of people who, so let's say someone that's a little bit too large for their horse, well, no, that's not right, but maybe someone that's a little bit too large for a saddle that'll fit onto their horse. So like sometimes we see people who, they're not too heavy for their horse, but their bum doesn't fit into a saddle that would fit onto their horse's back. So therefore those people are often tempted by a treeless saddle because they're told, well, they don't need to be fitted to the horse, it doesn't matter how long they are on the horse, because they're kind of clapped in the middle like this. You're not limited to the length of the ribs in the same way that you are with a treed saddle. So a lot of people are tempted by that. They're tempted to be able to have a saddle without having to have it fitted, without having to pay to have a special one made, to get one that's got a big enough seat and short enough panels for their horse. And also a lot of people are tempted by them because their friend has one and their friend gets one, and perhaps their friend hasn't ever had a particularly well-fitting saddle before, or perhaps they have had a well-fitting saddle before and they put this treeless saddle on their horse and they're like, OMG. They sit in it. Oh, it's like sitting on a pillow. It's soft, it's squishy, it kind of folds underneath their bum, comes up and cups their bottom, and they're like, ooh, this is delightful. And because of that, they relax a little bit and they ride maybe a little bit differently. And then their horse goes, ooh, I like this. This feels different on my back. And they'll move nicely. They might even move nicely for a few months because they'll be like, oh, I don't feel like I've got something on my back. It's like amazing. It's like being ridden bareback. I love it. But I promise you, guarantee you, that the majority of people that do that and that feel that, a few months down the line, do end up with pressure points on their horse. Now, like I said, I'm going to get loads of hate for this, and I really don't want loads of hate because if you've watched any of my other videos, you will know I'm not at all into slagging anything off, but this is something I feel very passionately about. We have these, albeit rather archaic looking structures within our saddles for a reason. We don't put them in for fun. We don't put them in so people like me have a job. We put these in because they distribute the pressure, the weight and the balance of us on our horse. So we sit here and the pressure and the weight is distributed evenly. The stirrup bar pressure distributed evenly. The girth pressure distributed evenly because of, you guessed it, the tree. And I know it's tempting if you've got a tricky to fit horse, or your saddle fitter has recommended a really expensive saddle because they can't fit you in one that fits on your horse otherwise, and you just think, oh my gosh, I can't afford that, but so-and-so down the road has got a treeless and she says it fits anything. I don't have to have it fitted every 6 months. This sounds brilliant. And my gosh, it's so comfy. It's like sitting on a pillow. Please, I know it's tempting, but please instead get a saddle fitter out to fit you with a well-fitting tree saddle. But just remember, anything that collapses or has any flex this way in them, your weight will not be distributed and you will end up with pressure points. And it's not the same. A lot of people say, oh, well, we all rode bareback for many years. Well, number one, we don't know what horses' backs looked like in the olden days when everyone rode bareback. And number two, bareback, you don't have a girth and you don't have stirrup bars. And riding bareback is something you do only tend to do every now and again. So there's nothing wrong with bareback riding every now and again. But please, if you put a saddle on your horse with a girth and with stirrups, then you really do need something within that saddle to distribute the weight. E.g., you really need a tree. I hope that was in some way useful, and I'm sorry about the controversy. I hate being controversial, and I really hope I don't get lots of hate for this, because it is a really, really, really important thing to think about. I've avoided doing this video for so long because I know that there's loads of people out there that are really passionate about their treeless saddles. If you've got any questions, queries, or general chit chat, then please do ask away in the comments section. I love getting questions and I'm happy to answer them to the best of my ability. In the meantime, take care, stay safe, lots and lots of love.